Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? So this is the legendary founding titan, as you even needed to know. I mean, obviously you know who it is, considering, well, you kind of clicked on the video that says legendary founding titan. So, but anyway, so I got a little, what do you call it, a topic to talk about. I actually already I actually already did this. This is actually what the recording is now. Um it was me recording me literally saying what I'm about to say now. But my OBS had an update. So I was talking for 50 minutes all to myself. um, so that was fun, but I am kind of glad that it did at least save the gameplay. So, because I was kind of distracted because my allies left, and then I kind of wasn't a 1v3, and I kind of lost. So I was really distracted. Um, but yeah, so let me just. I'm just gonna say what I think. I'm just gonna say what is probably better, in my opinion, in between Halo Wars 1 versus Halo Wars 2. It's a big topic that I think a lot of Halo Wars content creators had to ask themselves and tell people what they believe is better. And I think since I kind of address myself as probably more so a Halo Wars content creator, probably more than anything else, probably. I do of course do a lot more other than just Halo Wars content, but I do a lot of Halo Wars just because I do love the game a lot. So I do consider myself probably a Wars content creator. So I think it is probably mandatory almost for me to acknowledge my opinions on what I think is better. Um, so it does come down to, like, I would say, I guess 7 categories. Basically, just first being gameplay, game modes, leaders and units, overall balance, map variety, modding, and which game is overall better. Let's start with gameplay. So gameplay is and what I mean by gameplay is basically the controls, I guess, for starts. Basically the control of the game, how it feels, how it looks, how your units listen to you, I guess. Um, and overall, I'd say both kind of are relatively the same. I would say for this one, gameplay. I should have said probably it's more like gameplay slash controls, I guess. Um, but yeah. So it Halo Wars 1 and Halo Wars 2, they both feel the same to control. Um, and they're both pretty easy to dive into. Uh, in terms of like how to build your bases and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same layout as each other, so not much has changed there. Um, so I gameplay for uh how the if so how the map and everything feels. I guess it's really they kind of, like I said, they feel the same, really. Not so really. I don't think there's any difference for gameplay. They're both just they're both just RTSs, and they both do things a lot differently. But as far as controls and stuff go, they're pretty much the exact same. Um, as far as game modes go, right? Um, I'd say Halo Wars 2 probably has better game modes. Halo Wars 1, really, the only thing that ever stuck out to me was standard. I didn't like deathmatch because deathmatch I felt like was it took a lot of the strategic value out of the game. I feel because the big part of the strategy, at least for Halo Wars, in my opinion, is really debating on which units to go for, which units to upgrade, and deathmatch kind of negates that, and it's just full on duking it out, no like progression of building up, or and really people just try to like rush like building killers like vultures or something just to try to kill you as fast as possible in deathmatch since you start out with so many supplies. It wasn't really fun. I don't care for deathmatch. I didn't care for the other game modes they added on the way, like reinforcement, because reinforcement was really RNG based. It really wasn't skill based at all. It was more RNG. Um, I didn't care for tug of war. I didn't care for the other mode either. Standard was really the only mode that kind of existed for me in Wars 1. So, but Wars 2, they have like all these different modes like Blitz. They have Firefight, which Firefight is amazing. I really enjoy just duking it out with just waves upon waves of bad guys and stuff. It's really satisfying just watching uh, all these defenses and units hold their own to fight this seemingly never-ending waves of bad guys. It's really fun to watch and play around with for the game mode. So game modes for Halo Wars 2 definitely. Halo Wars 2 definitely has way better game modes than Wars 1 in my opinion. Uh, as far as far as leaders and units go, so in Wars 1, each character had their own units. Like you had Cutter with ODST drop, ODSTs, and they had elephants. You had Forge that was Grizzlies and Cyclopses, which I'll get to Grizzlies in a minute. But you had Anders, with Hawks and Gremlins and so on. So each leader has their own units. Not many leaders in this game have their own base units. There's a few, not too many though. I do say that the units are probably, despite the fact that none of them really get their own units per se, I do say that they are better in this game than in Wars 1, because in Wars 1 you were so limited to what was viable. I mean, let's be real here. UNSC would only ever really build, vehicles like Scorpions and Wolverines, and the Covenant would either build, mass hunters, vamps, banshees, sacrificing banshees, and so on. It was really just down to that. I really feel like the units were way more fleshed out here. I mean, you got your Marines and Grunt squads that are like, Grunt squads are not really too useful, but the Marines, they can act as support units and everything else, which is really cool. And on top of that, you also have just there's just so many units. Like in Halo Wars 1, there's a lot of units that just don't do a whole lot. Like there's not that many units that are per se viable. Like yeah, flamethrowers are really good for hunters, but the thing is, flamethrowers, you only need to build them if they build a mass army of hunters. But even Scorpions could kill hunters relatively quickly and easily too, like because they can just outmaneuver hunters. So unless the hunters are like constantly, like if they're charging your base, of course then you're gonna have to step in, but if they're just like outside your base, you can constantly just rotate the tanks around it. Every pro player knows this, that hunters are very easily outmaneuvered by tanks, and it's really dumb to have that because of the fact that they're supposed to be this anti-vehicle killer, but they can't do that because of the fact that the Scorpions were so easily able to just outmaneuver them, and I felt like that was really unfair, in terms of balance and everything else. So, and not to mention that there is 16 leaders in Wars 2, versus only 6 in Wars 1. There's a lot of leaders. And the thing is, in Wars 1, they only had like so many powers. In this game, they have a whole wheel of passive, active drops of units. There's just so much for each character. And each one has like such a unique play style. You got Pavium, like the economic and defensive guy. You got Vortis, a character that focuses hardcore rushing. You got, Cutter that, is able to reinforce positions with all his drops. You got Anders that, all of them are just so unique. Got Shipmaster that can cloak an entire army, sneak around back of your base with a teleporter. I mean, you got all these like unique play styles and abilities to think about when you're playing Halo Wars 2 over 1, making the game more fun. And with so many leaders to fight against, there's like so many possibilities. Like, in Wars 2 or Wars 1, there wasn't really many possibilities of who you'd be fighting against, who had the more advantage over another. Like, it's a lot more diverse here, and I feel like that's a really good thing to have, because you won't be seeing like 3 of the same character typically, or that people, because in Wars 1 as well, it was very easy to pick out who the best leader is. Wars 2, it's not easy to pick out the best. I mean, if I were to say who the best leaders are, it would probably be Vortis and Shipmaster. Arguably Arbiter, or not Arbiter. Arbiter's really good though, I know, in PvP, but Colony is also really good. But I feel like they're not like so good that they just outclass every other hero. It's not the case at all. But in Wars 1, I feel like in late game, Cutter and Anders really punish anyone that wasn't Cutter and Anders. I mean, think about it. You got Forge, which, it's already noted that people... Grizzlies, let's be honest, in Wars 1, they were not good. They were worse than Scorpions. And it mainly came down to the fact that they just lost so much damage for some reason. Their shrapnel was just so weak. They had a tiny difference in HP, but it wasn't too big to make much of a difference of any kind. And that's one thing that's also really bad about Wars 1 as well, was like upgrades like that would actually hurt you. It was kind of... And it wasn't just Grizzlies. There was not too many, but there was a couple that actually did get worse as they upgraded. Like, I'm trying to think of another one that got worse when it upgraded. I think it was oh shoot, I'm trying to think of who it was. There was like, I think 1 or 2 other units that kind of... Arguably Spartans were one of them for outside of the vehicle comp. And that's one thing that's a big thing too. Spartans are not just complete pushovers in Halo Wars 2. They actually feel like a Spartan. In Wars 1, I hated the fact that Spartans were just so incredibly weak. A single honor guard could take them down. It's just so dumb. The only way to make a Spartan useful in the first game was to put them in a tank. It's like... It's just so stupid. Like, gameplay wise, yeah, it makes sense for... Like, gameplay wise, it's fun to be in a vehicle, like in an FPS shooter. But realistically speaking, and in lore, Spartans hardly ever got in, like, a set of tank. You know why? Because they are tanks. Spartans are literally just walking tanks. That's what the armor's for. They're not meant to be inside of a cockpit of a tank, pretty much. They are a tank. They're a moving fortress, that they are the tank, right? And it's just so stupid, the fact that a single honor guard could punish a Spartan if they were not in a vehicle. It was such a huge handicap that I had a huge issue with, because that's not what defines a Spartan, to be in in a vehicle. especially if it's a tank, because it's just stupid to me, because a Spartan is a tank. It's so nice to be able to see them be able to put up a fight on the ground. I feel like one major issue I had with uh I feel like one major issue I also had was with the fact that in late game, like I said, Unicy are just way better than Covenant. In Halo Wars 2, you could argue that Banished are a lot better than Unicy, but I don't really think so. I'm not saying that Banished aren't better. They're definitely better. I mean, they got more powerful leaders. They got more powerful uh support units. Like their support units are like probably better. Their tanks are better because they cost less pop and they're a lot more damaging. Um, there's a few things that are like quite a bit of things that are, especially bases. Bases are a big one. The fact that you can put cloaking towers and shielding on your bases is a huge advantage over the squishy Unit C bases. Um, so yeah, I definitely think that Banish are better, but it's not to the extent like it was in Wars 1. Like I feel like in Wars 1, Unit C just demolished Covenant in late game. Uh, that's not always the case, but like there was so few options that were viable, especially if you're fighting Unit C that got their leaders up, like their Spartan levels up. Because once a Spartan is like level armor has like 10 armor on it, a Scarab is not even a threat at that point. Like hardly anything you do at that point is really a threat to them as a Covenant leader. And that's the main thing about it. It just really sucks. Overall, though, I'd say leaders and units alike for Halo Wars 2 is a lot better, just because they're a lot more diverse. There's hardly any units that are like bad. And here's the other thing too. I really don't like there's two leaders in Halo Wars 1 I don't like. I'll say that right now. And that's Anders and Arbiter. Now I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that because I know people love Anders. But the thing I don't like about her is just the fact that I don't like playing her because for two reasons. One, a lot of people played her already, and two, I don't like playing an overpowered character. I felt like she was overpowered. The fact that she gets half her upgrades are half time and half the price, and it gave her that huge field advantage for either if you wanted to do rush or if you wanted to do a late game builds. Get Hawks right away. It was very easy for her to just insta build up pretty much and just research everything, have the strongest units and the earliest of any character in the game, and so on. I mean, it was a big thing for me that I just didn't like. I felt like she had such a huge advantage because of that starter. And the fact that her Gremlins and Hawks, and with her Cryo, just negated everything. Oh, you got an air army? Oh, she's got a Cryo Bomb. Oh, you got a tank army? Oh, she's got to use a Gremlin, just bam, half your army's stunned. Like there was so little you could do to Anders that would surprise her or that would be effective. Like there's so little strategy that you could do against her. And that was the biggest thing for me that I did not like about her, was that she was just so overpowered. Arbiter I didn't like because I didn't like it. Well, for one, I didn't really like controlling him that much, especially on PC. And two, I just don't like him having just suicide guns. If we're talking about vanilla game, I just don't really care for that too much. So I thought it'd be cooler to have an elite squad or something, but no, you don't get that. It's just suicide grunts, which I don't see why he got that, but whatever. So overall balance, though, I feel like Wars 2 definitely takes a cake. There's just a lot more units that every unit in the game. It's hard to find any units that are really not useful in their own way, right? It's hard to find that in Wars 2. There's like every unit has potential to do good for you. Wars 1 cannot be said the same. There's a lot of units that are really not useful after a certain point in the game. And there's a few here in Wars 2. Like if there's a few, like you're not gonna be building jackrabbits, you know, like 30 or 40 minutes in the game. You're not gonna be building ghosts in 30, but it's very few though. Like in Wars 1, like more than I'd argue more than half of the roster of units would be completely useless after like 50 minutes or so, or 30 minutes. Like honestly, Cobras, I know people love Cobras, but I find them to be quite useless unless you're doing Super Turtles. But if you're not doing Super Turtles and you're just trying to attack, Cobras could be kind of arguably useless. Locusts are situational. Wraiths are garbage. I I don't think anyone ever plays with Covenant and goes with Wraiths just because they're so inferior. Um, Grunt Squads you're not going to be using. Jackals you're not going to be using because they're not going to be building many guys apart from flamethrowers if you build a mass army of hunters. Uh, yeah, there wasn't really many units, not too many, on the roster that were like really that could be taken to late game. Um, I definitely feel like Wars 2 definitely did that better for late game potential for every unit to have a somewhat of a purpose. Uh, Even if it's a little bit, it still helps though. Every unit you can notice them on the battlefield. Uh, so overall balance, Halo Wars 2 definitely. Leaders and units, Halo Wars 2 just because of how many leaders there is, all the abilities they got, all the passives they got, and so on. So definitely Halo Wars 2 for that as well. Map variety. so far everything I've said is Halo Wars 2 pretty much. I've favored of Halo Wars 2. The Halo Wars 1 takes it hands down without a single question or doubt. Map variety goes to Halo Wars 1. Halo Wars 1 has way more unique maps. They have more maps for that matter. Like, honestly, I can't even tell you the differences between most of the maps in Wars 2. I can't. None of the maps have that much personality to them. None of them. I mean, Sentry is the only one that really stands out. That and I guess Fort Jordan, which is just a remake of Fort Dean. But overall, other than those two maps, that's it. That's like the only ones that have unique play style or anything. Every other map feels kind of the exact same to me. I can't really tell you any differences between any other map besides those two. Like in Wars 1, I could tell you every difference between every map on there. Like Halo Wars 1, you had Labyrinth, which you could use the drones on the side to give your guys shielding, extra damage if you wanted to, like give them like a healing drones. You had the bridge in the middle, so you could place like Cobras on the sides or in the middle. You could place tanks, and just there were so many unique ways to play that map. Or Terminal Moraine, the super turtle place, where you can just place a billion units on your island, your own little fortress. It was so cool. It was so hard for the enemy to beat you, but the thing about that, it was so unique, it was also hard for you to beat them. Because yes, you can easily defend that position. Try to attack from there though. You can't attack from there. There's no way in hell you can attack from that position. Because with you being on that island, you're exposed to not being able to leave the area. You can't leave with land. Yeah, go with air units, and you gotta rely. And you're more than likely gonna have only a few air units because you're gonna need everything for turtling up. So like all the ground heavy tanks and stuff if you're UNSC. So Terminal Moraine definitely is a unique map with those base slots on the sides. And then you got docks, which I think really is why Sentry stands out. If you look at the two maps, they're relatively the same, really. My friend pointed this out, that Sentry has the same exact layout as docks, and he's not wrong, really. It's really similar. they both have the thing in the middle that separates ground troops. Sentry does have that bridge, but it's, I mean, do you really want to risk going on it? That's the thing you gotta ask yourself. So if you say no, then you're gonna go all the way around, just like you would have to do for docks. And that's why Sentry is probably the community's most favorite. I know it's one of my favorites as well, that they actually added. So, Wars 1 definitely has better map variety for sure. Like I said, there's only two maps that really stand out to me, and both of them are like, one is a remake and one is arguably a remake. So I definitely think Wars 1 takes a cake there. As far as modding goes, Wars 1 also takes a cake for that. You've seen all the mods I've downloaded on Wars 1, and there's quite a lot of them. There's a lot of, Halo Wars 2 leaders on there. There's a lot of mods out there that you can try out. I'm not really too interested in it anymore, mainly because of the AI. I do like fighting AI, but it does get old. And I want to try and do PvP, which is why I have been playing Wars 2 quite a bit. I've been trying to get better at it for you guys. And really for myself, because I really love fighting players. I really do. It's really satisfying being able to, just beat down some players once in a while. So, as far as modding goes, yeah, Halo Wars 1 easily takes the spot for that as well. So which game is overall better? I have to tell you, Halo Wars 2. If this was my old self, if I was my old self would probably kill me now. I'm not even gonna lie. My old self would kill me because I hated Halo Wars 2. I hated when it first came out. I despised it. I wanted to murder it. But as time progressed, as I came back for it, the second time, I grew to really appreciate it. I love Halo Wars 2. I love the leaders there is. I love the amount of different playstyles there is for each and every leader. I love the chaoticness of it. There's just so much to the game that just makes it so interesting. I mean, when you have 6 leaders, think about it. 6 leaders with a full army just colliding into each other. That is 720 troops going at each other. 720 squads of some form of troops just smashing into one another. What is not to love about that? That is a lot of troops. That is a shit ton. On top of that, you also have powers that drop in even more troops on top of that when they die. You could drop in, like, jump jet brutes, or if you're colony, you could drop in the Goliaths, or if you're Forge, you could drop in Grizzlies. You can be Cutter, drop in ODSTs. It is just so fucking crazy how much abilities there is that can just take effect. When you have 6 leaders just throwing every ability down they have, trying to win the fight, trying to take a base or objective or something, it is just all out war. It is crazy. It is mind-boggling because you have like all these powers going off at once. All these armies using abilities, like engineers using shields, shrouds covering people with invisibility, scarabs using, their huge shields as well. You got vultures firing phoenix missiles, and it's all just the most craziest shit you have ever seen in a RTS like Halo. And it is so satisfying just seeing those huge battles just take place, because it's just so chaotic. Like, you don't even know what the hell is going on half the time when those battles take effect. And that's a good thing, because it shows you how big the battles can be in wars, or just in Halo in general. It shows you how big battles in Halo can be, and how chaotic it can get. When you have capital vessels, capital ships overhead just firing down on the troops below, because they say that in the story, that's where the lasers actually come from, is from the capital ships and shit. You gotta think, like, that's a lot of ships up there just firing down on this area, you know, just taking effect with the ground troops and everything else. It's just so chaotic. It's so satisfying just seeing that, like just seeing how chaotic the battles can unfold. You know, it could be something so simple, like, like 1 second it could just be like a small skirmish, and all of a sudden it could just turn into like this fucking like huge ass war zone, just like just complete chaos everywhere. And that's what's so fun about Wars 2 is just how insane and intense battles can grow to be. Um, and that is why ultimately I feel that. And the thing is, Halo Wars 2 still has a lot of people playing it as well. And that's also another good thing about it. Like, if you want to fight players in Wars 1, you just really can't. I mean, most of the time, it's really all about the mods now. No one really plays Wars 1 to fight players. It's just, I mean, not many, at least. I haven't been able to find games for crap on there, but Wars 2, you can easily find games still to this day. There's a lot of people still playing Wars 2. And that's one thing I really love about it is the fact that you could get better fighting players. You can. There's just so much to Halo Wars 2 right now, and that's why ultimately I feel like Wars 2 is better now for me. Just and even if there was a player base for Wars 1, I still wouldn't care much for it because of the fact that it's just not as fun, in my opinion. It's just not as chaotic for 1, and for 2 it's really just there's not many viable strategies, and I don't really like any RTS that doesn't have many viable strategies. I like to have this every unit basically having a purpose, and I feel like Wars 2 done that. And the fact that there is 16 leaders in the game, and I'm not gonna say perfectly balanced, for sure, that's not, but it is pretty balanced if you consider it. I mean, you figure there is 16 heroes, and the fact that there's no one that I would say like completely just stomps another. Like, there's characters that counter one another, sure, but there's no character that just dominates the field of battle because they're just so absurdly OP that no one can beat them. No, there's no character like that. Like, in my opinion, I feel like Anders in Hit Wars 1 is sort of like that, just because of how much she shuts down. Like, she just shuts down so many units with her cryos and her gremlins. She just shuts down everything pretty much. But in Wars 2, I don't feel like anyone really is to that degree of just blowing out, you know, every character like they're nothing. But yeah, and that's why I feel like Wars 2 is better. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and comment below at this time. I'm really interested in what you guys think. Do you think I'm wrong? Is there anything I left out? What's your thoughts on Wars 1 versus Wars 2? And yeah, like I said, Wars 1 and 2 are both very fun games. If you haven't tried either one, I recommend you do try at least one of them. Arguably, probably Wars 2, mainly just due to the fact that the player base, I guess, like this is the player base. If you're really into PvP or just having an active community, I'd say Wars 2 would be your better choice. If you want to have, I guess, more of your own time, like just do your own thing, get Wars 1 and get some mods going for yourself. There's quite good mods in there that you can experiment with and have fun with and stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.